Again, as I mentioned, I literally had been struggling on what to preach on this morning, and of course sometimes thinking and not putting two and two together. But if you remember those, we've been doing the series on Unshaken and spiritual warfare, and it's pretty fitting. I said last week was the last one, but when you start thinking about what today is, it very much involved an enemy 21 years ago. And so today will be the last part in Unshaken. But today we're going to look at kind of what is our role. You know, we talked about making sure that we put on the armor of God and we're ready to fight, we're ready to go take on this enemy and protect our other folks and fight together and do all those things. And in that, it comes with some responsibilities. Now, a couple of things, some interesting things about 9/11, and I'm sure you can find it somewhere, but on that day, Tom Perini was getting ready to do the White House barbecue that day. Little Tom Perini's and Buffalo Gap was there the day 9/11 hit. And they're like, well, we're obviously not going to do barbecue. But they told him, Tom was like, hey, you know what? We'll feed everybody. And they said, Tom, we cannot have your smoker cooking after what just happened. And it looked like barbecue happening, but he ended up going back and feeding everybody. But that's a little tidbit of the 325 was involved at the White House that day, and Tom Perini was about to have the barbecue. But I think he talks about it, you can look it up, but it's a neat story hearing how they had to get evacuated and leave and get off grounds, and very interesting story about Tom Perini's and Perini's being there that day. And so as I started thinking about what to preach on this morning, connecting it a little bit back to food, I don't know about y'all, but one of the first things that we really started struggling with when it came after COVID was when you went out to eat and what was not there. Anybody want to remember? Mexican food. Chips and salsa. And even today, sometimes you have to ask for it. What's the word? Salt. I don't know about you, but salt is pretty important when it comes to anything I eat, especially if I've got chips and salsa. Sometimes I get a good workout on how much salt goes on there. Probably don't need that much, but salt's pretty important. And if you look at, we're going to be in Matthew chapter 5, and as we look at some responsibilities as we go into this world, and as we are armored up, we have a responsibility as Christians. We have a responsibility when we accept Jesus Christ and accept salvation. It comes with some responsibility. And it's good to be armored up, but like we mentioned last week, we've got to be armored up, we've got to be prayed up, and we've got to be ready to be effective around the people we see and encounter, and to make us to be effective Christians. And as I was thinking about it, and I kept coming back to this passage in Matthew chapter 5, of us being the salt and the light of the world, and being people that when we are in the room, when we are in around people, and we are armored up and we're battling the spiritual warfare that we have, but just in our everyday lives, as Christians, we've got to be the salt and we've got to be a light that's shining. And in 2 weeks, we're going to start a new series called God is Not Boring. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm asked some of you to do some videos, but just to let you know, in 2 weeks we're going to start a series called God is Not Boring. And so just be ready for that. But in Matthew chapter 5, Jesus says these words, beginning of verse 13. You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A town on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light. And I've got that underlined. It gives light. It functions. It does. It gives light to everyone in the house. And in the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. When Jesus says those things, it reminds me that when we trust Jesus as Savior and Lord, we have a responsibility to give some flavor to this place, to give light to where we are. And when I think about, I know what's crazy, and I know Olivia's here, but I don't know about y'all. We talked a few weeks ago how words can be different, like you can be bad, and it's good or bad. Well, a new word, I say new, that a lot of these kids use is, man, don't be salty. Don't be salty. Man, you're just being salty, right? For those that are around younger people, or maybe older people use it too. I don't know about you. I don't ever say, salty doesn't come to my mind if somebody's being sassy or trying to be quick, but that's a word, is salty. We don't want to be that type. Now, don't get me wrong, sarcasm is fun, and I'm really good at it. But when it comes to being salty, it's very important. I don't like chips without salt. If I've got chips and salsa, it's got to have salt. It's just not as good. And for us, when we start to lose our saltiness, it's a problem. When we start to lose our flavor of bringing in the type of meal or the type of flavor or the taste, when we're around people, sometimes people get their view of God of how they see Christians act or how Christians talk. One of my favorite illustrations to do, and I thought about it, but I didn't know if people were allergic to sugar or salt. One of my favorite illustrations I used to do in youth ministry was to get a bunch of apples. Just cut up, and some I would douse the salt. Some I put sugar. But I would douse them, and then some didn't have anything. And you start handing out apples to the kids, they don't care, it's free food, they'd eat it all day long. You could have put ketchup on it, they probably ate it. But they'd start eating them, and you could tell, and you'd watch the faces of people. Great apple, nothing on it. Sugar, not terrible. But when they took a bite of a salty apple, the face they made, and you people that have kids, that give your kids lemons, for the record, I'm going to take this on the side. You people that do that to your grandkids just to see them have a reaction, that's mean. Because you're not doing it for anything else to see if they like it. You want the reaction to post on Facebook or something like that. But the importance of that is how we taste when we're around people is very important. The flavor that we give to people when we're in a room is important. So number one, how we talk and how people see us, we want to be sure that we are a flavor people want to be around. Then he says, you are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under its bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light. I can't emphasize how important that is, that light is plugged in, that light gives light. And light is so important for so many things. One, light gives us guidance. If we're in a place where it's dark, it's really nice to have light. Heck, they've even figured out a way that if everything goes down, follow the landing strip lights on the exit. Because lights tells us where to go. If you are in a dark place, whether it's a match, a flashlight, it doesn't matter. Light is important. And for us today, and I think about 9/11, and I think the way our country is right now, Christians, it's our responsibility to be guiding people and pointing people to who Jesus is. Nobody else is going to do it. It's not our responsibility. Well, I hope that person figures it out. I hope that person maybe figures it out. Maybe they'll go to church. Maybe they'll do it on their own. You and I are the hands and feet of Jesus. And if we come across in the salty world or the light world, that's why we're doing this God's Not Boring thing in 2 weeks, is that we've got to be people that guide and light people and point people to Jesus. The other thing that light does is when it's needed, sometimes it gives us refuge. Psalms 119, 114 says, you're my refuge and my shield. I've put my hope in your word. Guidance and refuge is another thing that is very important for light. A light hidden might as well be out. A light that's hidden under a bowl might as well be out. Might as well be unplugged. It is worthless. And for us as Christians, when we don't want to shine our light, we love the song, "This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine." But what is the next verse? Hide it under a bushel? No. And when we take on that thought of, it's not my responsibility to tell people about Jesus. It's not my responsibility to point people to Jesus. And we hide our light. We might as well be not plugged in. It is our responsibility to not hide our light under a bushel. No. And honestly, we probably already seen that. We always think that's a kid's song. Kids sing it out loud. Hide it under a bushel, no. Don't let Satan blow it out. That song's not just for VBS kids. It's for you and I to make sure that our light, and especially in a time like today, where people, and we had a Sunday school lesson that was pretty sensitive, but we have a lot of people still looking for hope. We have a lot of people still in this world, as much Bible is out there, as much things and everything that we know about Jesus, and we know there are still people today, not just in foreign countries where we send missionaries, which are very important, but there are still people today in the 325 here looking for hope. And it's our responsibility to make sure our light shines. Make sure our light shines. And here's the other cool part about it is Jesus compares us. In John chapter 8, Jesus says this. John chapter 8, verse 12 says, "When Jesus spoke again to the people, he said, 'I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life.'" I love that Jesus called me the same thing he called himself. He said, "I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." And Matthew says, "You are the light of the world." And so my question as we start to wrap up, I am the light of the world. Could you say, verse 12, Ryan, I'm the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never go into darkness, but will have the light of life. Every single one of us in this room will leave a legacy. Every single one of us, each day, write another part of our legacy. Every day, people are around us that we know, that we don't know, but when they follow us, where do we take them? When people follow you, where do you take them? Some of us, we only bring our light out when we think we need it. Oh, my phone's in my pocket. One of the things that everybody used to do back in the day, when everybody got emotional and the song was good, they lit the cigarette light. Remember, you go to those concerts, they'd light. Well, now it's you turn your flashlight on and do this. But how cool is it when everybody in that place does it? Now, don't get me wrong, there's always somebody that doesn't want to do it. When all those lights are shining in that stadium or in that concert venue, it's amazing how many little flashlights on a phone light up a place. Or you go to a candlelight service and it lights up the room. When we start to get our phone out, not just when we need it, but we continue to walk in the light as He is in the light and pointing people to Jesus, our light shines bright and helps people point to Him. The other thing, sometimes our light is for its purpose. You hide it for yourself and you don't show it. Another one, the other point. If people are following you and they can't see your light, you may make it out, but the others will still be in the dark. Let me read that one again. If people are following you and they can't see your light, you may make it out okay, but they're still going to be in the dark. The gift of Jesus, the salvation of Jesus, is not just yours. It is your responsibility to be salty. It's your responsibility to be a light, to bring people to know who Jesus Christ is. And so it's very important to do that. And I guess that's my question today. What's your flavor? When you walk into a room, what's your flavor? When you walk into a room, do you light it up? Because it's our responsibility and privilege to share who Jesus Christ is. It's our responsibility to flavor up this world that's pretty disgusting. It's our job to light up the world. Because if we don't have a light that's working, we might as well not be plugged in. I'm not going to give that illustration. If you want to ask me later, I'll tell you there what the illustration is going to be. Ask me later. It involves a lamp. Just ask me later. So my question to you today, no matter where you're at, what kind of flavor are you? Because you can be suited up, ready to roll, even prayed up, and you feel pretty good about it. But when you walk into that place and when you go, do you light up a room? Do you bring the flavor of Jesus? Do you bring the good saltiness, not the teenager saltiness, to the people you're around? Because I'm a big believer. There's a lot of people that don't come into the door of a church because they're nervous. They're scared. They've got a past. They've got struggles. They don't like getting up at 11. If you're an adult sleeping until 11, you need to get up earlier. But when they see us out and giving flavor, and see that our flavor and our God is not boring, I'm really looking forward to this series. You get the chance to make a difference in the circle that you're in, that I don't see, that Vicki doesn't see, that Pat doesn't see, that Lawrence doesn't see. You have your circle. Salt it up and light up the world. So this morning, make sure your light is plugged in. But the other thing is, sometimes we got all sorts of lights. We got plugged in, we got batteries, we got solar. Maybe you need to be recharged. Maybe you're tired and you just need to be recharged. My favorite song in there is Revive Us Again. Run to Jesus, say, you know, Jesus, I need to be recharged. I need to be recharged. Or maybe your salt is kind of nasty and you need to resalt. Whatever it is, God is not boring. God has given us life, God has given us love, and God has given us joy. We should be people that flavor up the world to get rid of the taste that the enemy tries to leave. So this morning, as Pat comes to play, that's my challenge to you. Are you plugged in? Does your light bulb need to be changed? Because you be plugged in, and if your light's a little dimming, I've got one in our bathroom, it does this. We need to change it. It's not very effective if you're dimming. You come forward if you need to, or just pray where you're at. But recharge me, Lord. Recharge me. Revive me again. But let my light shine.